Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today, we have a story that will warm your heart and stir your soul. Stay with us until the end, because sometimes the smallest acts of kindness leave the biggest marks on the wild. Let's begin. Winter in Montana was unlike anywhere else. It wasn't the bone-chilling cold of the north, nor the ferocity of East Coast snowstorms. It simply lingered endlessly, blanketing everything in white silence, as if it were a sorrow that had yet to be named. The small town where Liam lived curled itself between pine forests and sleeping grasslands. Snow drifted from rooftops to windows, muffling every sound beneath a thick quilt of stillness. Liam, 14 years old, with gray-blue eyes like the late afternoon sky, lived with his strict father in an old wooden farmhouse ever since his mother died in a car accident. From the day the car flipped near the gas station curve, Liam was no longer the same. He didn't speak. He didn't cry. He didn't react. He was quiet, like the bedroom wall, just silently moving through the days, his gaze seemingly lost from the world. His room was cold and dark. On the wall opposite his bed hung an old mirror, its wooden frame cracked and weathered by time. It was the only object he hadn't touched since his mother's passing, because she used to look in that mirror every morning, brushing her hair with Liam standing beside her. And then, one night, when the world outside was buried under snow and howling wind, Liam happened to glance toward the mirror. But what it reflected back was not him. It was a lion. It stood still, regal, as if it had just stepped out of some long-forgotten dream of the African savanna. But in those deep brown eyes, there was no ferocity. Only sadness profound, cold, and hauntingly lonely. Liam panicked. He rubbed his eyes. But when he looked again, the mirror only showed the wooden ceiling and the pale yellow bulb overhead. He thought it was just a hallucination. But every night at that same hour, the lion returned only in the mirror, never in the room. And Liam, for reasons he couldn't explain, began to wait for it. Liam started to draw the lion after seeing it the first time. With trembling hands and soft pencil lines, he sketched its solemn, majestic figure, carefully shading the deep-set eyes that seemed to pull at his soul. When the drawing was finished, he didn't hang it on the wall like his old sketches. Instead, he folded the paper into quarters and hid it under his pillow like guarding a sacred secret. As if anyone else saw it, the lion might disappear forever. And night came again. In the dim glow of the bedside lamp, Liam gradually learned not to be afraid. He looked into the mirror without blinking. The lion was still there, neither moving forward nor stepping back, just watching him. No sound, no motion, only eyes always fixed on him, never leaving. He began to study it more closely. The gaze, which at first had seemed cold, now appeared strangely gentle. When Liam silently shed tears missing his mother, its eyes mirrored his sorrow deep and still like a winter lake. When he startled awake from nightmares, it would let out a low growl, soft, not loud, but just enough to steady his heartbeat again. One night, Liam whispered to the mirror, "Who are you?" There was no answer, only a low, rumbling growl like a reply meant for someone sensitive enough to hear it. From that night on, Liam gave it a name. Shadow. His shadow. No one else could see it. But he knew it was always there in the mirror, in his dreams, in the moments he felt weakest. He began writing about it in his journal, sketching it across the old pages of school notebooks, and even smiling softly whenever Shadow's eyes reappeared each night, not as a strange creature anymore, but as a friend, a part of himself he could no longer separate. And then he realized, sometimes the monster we fear the most is actually the one guarding us in the dark. That day, the winter wind swept through the long school hallways like an unspoken warning. Liam sat in a corner of the yard, trying to shrink into himself as much as possible. But he couldn't escape the cruel words, the mean-spirited shoves, or the echoing laughter that sliced through him like ice. Someone snatched his sketchbook, ripped out the pages filled with Shadow's image, and threw them into the air like brittle autumn leaves being crushed underfoot. Liam didn't fight back. He just walked home, quietly. The old room waited in silence still, the same desk, the same window frame, and the same mirror he stared into every night. But this time, the anger and pain inside him rose like fire. Liam threw all his drawings into the corner of the room, kicked over his box of colored pencils, and in his most painful momenta, slammed his hand into the mirror. Glass shattered. The sound of cracking rang out like a farewell, as if Shadow, his only friend, had broken apart with it. He curled up in the corner of his bed, too afraid to cry out loud, terrified of hearing the sound of his own heart breaking. But then, at midnight, a strange, faint light shone through the fractured glass. He jolted awake. The shards were scattered across the floor, but in the largest piece, the lion was still there. Still present, not faded, not sorrowful, but wearing a completely different gaze. For the first time, Liam saw Shadow's eyes blazing. Not with anger, not with blame, but with a determined fire wand that seemed to say, "I will not disappear just because you've fallen." Liam covered his face and wept. Not because of the bullying, not because of fear, but because he realized he didn't want to run anymore. He wanted to be strong, like Shadow. Not to strike back, but to stand tall. Because now he understood. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's standing back up, even while still trembling. After the night the mirror shattered, the lion never appeared clearly again. But Liam knew Shadow was still there. In every shard of glass, in every breath, in every step toward the light. Instead of trying to summon him back, Liam began to write. Each night he sat by the window, opened his old leather journal, and wrote letters to Shadow. Not cries for help, but honest confessions. Today I was scared, but I didn't run. Or, I was shaking during my presentation, but I raised my hand anyway. Those words became like tiny bricks, quietly rebuilding a long-shattered sense of trust. One early spring morning, Liam gathered all his courage and asked his father for permission to join a community art class in the neighboring town. The road was nearly 20 miles long, steep and windswept. But he didn't hesitate. The old bicycle creaked along with every push, and his heart for the first time in years beat with a rhythm no longer heavy or dark, the rhythm of someone truly alive. He didn't just paint with his hands, but with every wound that had not yet healed. Each brushstroke was a fear transformed, each shade of color a growing belief in himself. On the final day of the course, the class held a small presentation. Liam, in a wrinkled, button-up shirt and slightly trembling hands, stepped in front of the easel. Displayed was the painting he had completed after countless sleepless nights, a boy standing before a mirror, facing a lion majestic, yet with eyes gentle as the morning breeze. He lifted his gaze and with a soft but clear voice said, "I used to be afraid of the lion in the mirror. I thought it was there to threaten me, but then I realized it was me. The part of me that was brave, the part I had denied for so many years." No one spoke right away, but the room seemed to hold its breath, because they didn't just see a painting, they saw a heart that had once shattered, quietly piecing itself back together, fragment by fragment. Liam ended his presentation with a shaky exhale. In his hand was the final drawing of the lion's eyes meeting his through the mirror, but this time no longer shadowed. Instead, shining brightly like a greeting. He didn't expect anyone to fully understand. Just saying it out loud, what he had kept inside for so long, was enough. But when the lights turned on in the last row of the small auditorium, Liam caught a glimpse of a familiar figure, his father. He had been there the whole time, silent, not clapping, not smiling, just watching. After the exhibition, Liam went home first. His heart was still pounding, not out of fear, but because for the first time he felt centrally seen. That night, when he stepped into his room, he froze. On the wall beside the window was a new mirror, not scratched, not dusty, not the one that had shattered during that stormy night. Just a clear, polished mirror reflecting everything, including a heart slowly growing stronger. His father stood behind him, speaking quietly, without meeting Liam's eyes. "Your mother once said, you'd be as strong as a lion." Maybe she was right. Just one sentence. But it was enough for Liam to understand that the mirror wasn't just an object, it was a recognition. It was his father's clumsy but heartfelt way of saying, "I see you now. I understand." That night, Liam sat before the mirror again, the place that had once belonged to Shadow. But this time, no lion appeared, only himself, with calm eyes, steady and filled with a quiet strength. And in that moment he understood. When you no longer see the guardian in the mirror, it may be because you have become it. Time passed like the long winters in Montana, cold and silent, but eventually they melt away. Liam, the boy who once trembled in front of a mirror, was now a children's book illustrator. His pages didn't draw superheroes, but quiet creatures, timid foxes, owls that carried the night, and lions hidden deep in the hearts of children. He returned to Montana on an early autumn day, the sky wide and clear, just like the day he first dared to face Shadow. The school was unchanged, the creaky wooden benches, the hallways stained with memories. Liam brought a gift, the very first drawing he had once hidden under his pillow, now restored and framed, the lion in the mirror. He donated it to the school library. No ceremony, no announcements, just a small handwritten note attached. To anyone who has ever felt small, afraid, or lost. You may not see it yet, but there is a lion inside you, and it's waiting for you to return. That night, back in his small studio, Liam stood before the mirror next to his easel, very spot that had once marked the boundary between him and his fear. No lion appeared this time. But in his heart, the roar remained deep, steady, like the heartbeat of someone who had learned to stand on their own 2 feet. There was no need to roar to prove his strength. Because now, Liam understood. The true roar doesn't come from your throat. It comes from your heart. From a place deep inside you, where once there was trembling, where once there was brokenness. And yet, somehow, the courage to keep breathing remained. Wherever you are in life, remember there's a lion inside you, waiting to be seen. Not to fight, not to be fierce, but to remind you, you deserve to live boldly. You deserve to be free. And you have always been enough, even if you haven't realized it yet. If this story touched your heart, leave a sign, maybe an emoji or a small message to the lion inside your heart. Because somewhere out there, someone might need to hear that roar just to know they're not alone. Don't forget to hit like if you believe that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it within yourself. Subscribe to the channel to keep walking with us through stories of healing, humanity, and hope where ordinary people discover extraordinary strength inside. Share in the comments. When was the last time you felt a roar rise from within? And if you know someone who feels lost right now, send them this story. Because sometimes a video can become a mirror where someone sees themselves and begins the journey to rise again.